Right. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well today. Today we have Maha presenting on hemophilia. And if you didn't see in the chat, I just put the instructions for receiving today's hours. And that's just to send a 10-sentence summary to me by 4 o'clock tomorrow. And so, Maha, I want to thank you so much for being here today. And whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Okay, so I'll screen share, right?
Yep.
Hi everyone, I'm Maha and I go by any pronouns. So we're going to get started on a disease known as hemophilia. Okay, so what is hemophilia? It is a disorder characterized by uncontrolled bleeding and the inability of the blood to clot properly. So even a small cut or a minor injury can result in severe bleeding. Hemophilia is one among of the many X-linked recessive inherited genetic disorders. I know it's a long thing, I'll get into that later, where the gene causing disorder of dysfunction is located on the X chromosome. I'll also get into that as well. So the signs and symptoms of hemophilia are based on the levels of clotting factors present. Now, clotting factors are basically proteins that enable your blood to clot at places of injury where it can just stop the bleeding to occur. So these clotting factors are substances in the blood that affect the process of coagulation. If clotting factors are slightly reduced, then bleeding is observed only after the surgeries. If clotting factors are completely reduced, then spontaneous bleeding is observed. Now, getting into the symptoms of spontaneous bleeding, you get deep bruises, joint pain, and swelling. This is, of course, only applicable to those who have hemophilia. I explained bruises or bleeding, blood in urine or stools, more bleeding for a normal cut or injury, nosebleeds for no apparent reason, excessive bleeding in tooth gums, and unusual bleeding after vaccinations. So let's focus on the terminology before we get into this disease. Autosomal diseases, sex-linked diseases, dominant and recessive. Now, basically, it's a genetic disorder, right? So it is inherited through your sex chromosomes. Now we know that males have the XX chromosome and females have the XY chromosome, which is not necessarily doesn't necessarily mean that we abide to the binary code of sex or gender. Just talking about X and Y chromosomes. Now, the coding factors or the genes that are present in the chromosomes, the X chromosome. Now, the X chromosome is entirely responsible for this disease to occur. So it occurs more in males and it occurs rarely in females. And we'll look into that as to why that is. So before we discuss, let's go through the terminology. So autosomal diseases occur due to mutation of frequency in the autosomes. Now we know that all of us are comprised of 46 plus XX or 46 plus XY or any other variations that occur in our chromosomes. Now the 46 chromosomes, those are the autosomes, right? Those are the chromosomes that we all have.
नहीं कल 13 है आज 12th है
Yeah,
कल 13
Amina, if you could just mute yourself, I think that'd be great. Okay, I'll just move on. So autosomal diseases is when mutations in the chromosomes, so deficiency occurs in the autosomes. So you have the 44. So you have the 46 plus XY. You have 46 chromosomes, so it's I think 44 plus XY. I'm not really sure. Just pardon me on that doubt for a bit. So X-linked diseases, right? So occurs due to mutational deficiency in gene factors passed on through sex chromosomes. Again, XXXY are the sex chromosomes. Dominants are factors or alleles that are expressed and have the suppressing ability, and recessive are factors and alleles that are often masked, suppressed, and rarely expressed. Now, dominant and recessive is morely entirely based on the relationship that occurs between two factors. So we'll look into that more. Now let's go to the case study as to why hemophilia occurs. So since the mother is a carrier, which means that the mother is carrying the factor that causes hemophilia, she will pass on hemophilia to half of her children, both boys and girls. Now, this is a case study we're going through. So I think it's better to look at the question first. So we're talking about a woman who's heterozygous, right? And we're looking at a unaffected father who is hemizygous. So now we see the X with the capital H. Now the capital H is a factor or allele, but the small h that we see, the small h that we're observing on the screen is the reason why hemophilia occurs, because that's the gene that's causing it, right? It's not the H. Now the capital H that we look at on top of the X chromosome, we can observe and see that the capital H, that is, it's a dominant allele, and the small h is the recessive allele. Now, coming back to hemophilia, hemophilia is a sex-linked recessive disorder, which means that it is passed on, like it can affect males more. But since women have both X and X chromosome, right? And if women have, let's say, a small h and a capital H, the factor alleles, the capital H will suppress the small h because capital H is dominant, of course. We can generalize that, right? So when the small h or the factor allele, the hemophilia factor, comes into women, women can have women can suppress that gene or factor and thus just become carriers of that. So we can look here. It is X capital H small h, which means that the capital H has suppressed the ability for the small h to cause hemophilia. It's complicated, but I'll actually give you some websites to look into if you're more interested. So I'll tell you how this works. So the capital H in the X chromosome and in you're observing that in males, you're seeing that a capital H is coming on the X chromosome, and then there's Y. So that means the son's unaffected. Why? Because it's not the capital H that's causing hemophilia, right? Hemophilia is being caused by the small h, the small factor allele, the recessive allele. So now when we observe, we can compare these two situations. We can look at the second situation and we can see that the small h is affecting and causing the son to have hemophilia. Now in women, it's different. In women, it's more of you need both capital H, both capital genes for the disease to not occur at all. But if you have a small h and if you have a capital H, it just means that the woman becomes a carrier. The mother becomes the carrier of the disease. I just lost my mouse there for a second, but yeah. So the mother becomes the carrier of the disease, but she will not have the disease. So she has a capability to pass it on, but she doesn't have the capability to have hemophilia herself, which is quite interesting phenomenon. Now, but women can have hemophilia. Like nothing is impossible in science, right? So women can have hemophilia. So you see here, this is a daughter that is a carrier but is unaffected. Here, the woman is not affected at all. But if you have two small H alleles on both X chromosomes, then the woman's most likely to have hemophilia. You can just go through the case study if you want to read it. I'll come back to the slide if anyone of you are interested. I hope I'm not confusing you. So now let's talk about the types of hemophilia. I keep losing my mouse. Yeah, here it is. One second. So the different types of hemophilia, right? So the most common is classic hemophilia or hemophilia A, and then it's hemophilia B, which is the Christmas disease. It's actually not named after the holiday. It's actually some person whose last name was Christmas, and hemophilia B was observed in that person because they were lacking the clotting factor X. Now the clotting factor is the protein required for the blood to be clotted. So the ninth clotting factor is there. The eighth clotting factor, when it's absent or there's a decrease in it, that's when hemophilia A is caused. So although hemophilia is actually diagnosed at birth, it can also be later acquired in life. And that's how genetic disorders can start, right? You can pass it on. So you have acquired hemophilia, autoimmune hemophilia, right? It's when your body itself produces antibodies and attacks and destroys those clotting factors that are already present in your body. So that's what it is. It's acquired hemophilia. Now let's talk about the treatment. It actually depends on the type and the severity of disorder. It's not that a person with hemophilia cannot survive, but there's increased risk of just losing so much blood and passing away. So it consists of replacement therapy, in which human plasma concentrates or recombinant DNA used for clotting factors to replace blood clotting factors that are missing or deficient. Now, basically, this is again more of a biotechnology term where you either artificially place clotting factors in your body through recombinant DNA, or you acquire that from donated human blood. but that blood has to be screened. Every blood is screened before it's donated, right? It has to be screened for infectious diseases or hepatitis, HIV, any other disorders, genetic disorders in America. Then recombinant clotting factors. Again, recombinant clotting factors, which I mentioned, are often made in the laboratory, again, where biotechnology comes, and it's not from human blood, which is commonly used today. So replacement therapy, clotting factors are in fact injected or infused into a patient's vein in the form of an arm or a potent chest. So people with mild or moderate hemophilia do not need replacement therapy unless they are going to have surgery. Now, I cannot get into the surgery part of this because I haven't extended my research to that level. But I'm sure if you guys are interested, you can always just look it up on the internet. Okay, so here's a fun fact. Hemophilia is a royal disease because it has affected the royal families of England, Germany, Russia, Spain in the 19th and 20th centuries. We're all aware of the so now we know that mutations sometimes occurs due to breeding within the same community, incest, like that. So we know that royal families have had a long history of just breeding within community and causing incest, which is why mutations occur, or this is why decrease in clotting factors occur. So basically, Queen Victoria, she was a carrier of the hemophilia disease. Carrier as in she's the one who passed it on to her male offsprings, but she's not the one who acquired it. Or a lot of her female offsprings were carriers, but they were not affected by it because hemophilia in females, again, is very rare. So she was the carrier of hemophilia B, and so that means she had factor 9 deficiency. Factor 9 is again just a protein. You lack that protein, you cannot blood clotting will not occur in your body. That's it. That's the end of my presentation. I hope you all liked it. I know it was quite short, but if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask. I hope I didn't talk too fast. Anybody?
Thank you so much, Maha, for this amazing and very informative presentation. Does anyone have any questions for either of us? So there's no quiz. It's just I'll just put this again in the chat, but it's just those instructions, but there's no quiz this time.